Hey, people. I found the ancient writings that better explain the Sphinx, its Egyptian Sphinx meaning, and better explains the language change. And it was here in Genesis 11, the Tower of Babel story down at 11:5, when it says, "But came down Yahweh to see the city and the tower which had built the sons of men." So I pulled these writings off in the Greek Septuagint. This is the Septuagint I put above the meanings of the polyglot. It has all the markings in the Hebrew. And it had a lot of information in here about these words. I want to start on this bottom word. This they call the sons. And it's the B is in, and it has the mark on the earth here that tells me that the N-I reads separate. It's just N-I. N-I-E-A-D-S. Nigh heads. And I knew what N-I meant in the Egyptian hieroglyph. Just the single line here is Na, N-A, and it means the lower water. This is the three seasons. And then with three N's, this should read new, N-U, and it means to renew. And it's the season of the flood, and it means to renew is when the Nile brings all the silt in and refertilizes the earth. They wrote this three different ways. It's a single line of water is Na, and the three is new. As here, the new can be written several different ways. And when the Romans transcribed, they gave this plant, which is the X, the N also. So they called these writings the Book of None. And the Ni is hard to find. You don't find it often, but here it is underneath this rabbit here with the double water, and it's Ni, N-I. So that N-I more reads like Ni. And so Ra, Ra is the first, and then Re means again to re-up, and Ru is the third, as in Peru is the third house. And so Ni is the second. So I went to check it out here on Wiktionary, and it's the biggest word I've ever seen in there. It's around the world. It's used in 76 different languages. And so they give it a bunch of meanings. A lot of it is pronouns, but the majority of the ancient languages, where it comes up the most, it comes up as two, and it comes up as water. All the way on the other side of the world, over here in the Biloxi, the Biloxi Indians, that's the ones that went from Mobile to the Mississippi River on the Gulf Coast. And that was their word for water. It was the Danish nine, but it's the Idi, it's water. In the Kamano, in New Guinea, it's water. In the Kanza, it's water. In the Klo, it's water. A lot of language is a determiner, which is also a meaning of water. Everything is from, and so it's a determiner, is where it's from. In Ningal, it's water. In Nutabi, it's water. In the Omaponka of Proto-Siouan, it's American Indians, water. In Rawang, it's to pour or to water. Tagalog, they'll give it of, which is the L, but they'll often give it the symbol for water from the Hebrew. They'll say it means of or from. In the Welsh, they'll say us or we. But the Welsh, they were the waters. They were the sailors. In the Yil, it's water. This is a New Guinea language. In the Zoo, they say it's the sun. But it's still, the number 2. And I had never known this, but somebody, when they got here, they had wrote a book of Biloxi Indian language. And they were also called the Tonks. The two-tone is the language I talk about often. And this is the tone part. They didn't shape it with the two. It's just the tones. And these Biloxi Indians down here, they were all about the water. We had the Red Creek Indians up north were hunters and fighters, but these were fishermen down here. They lived on the water. They didn't build any rock mounds because we don't have any rocks down here. It's all mud and alligators down here. And I noticed that they had the same word for dog as they do in the Banyan language up there close to Tibet. And you see your word for pimple, acne, come from there too. And their word for iron, a mass, iron metal, a massy, a mass, iron kettle, is coming from the red home of Mars, the iron, here in the Indian term for Aries, mass. And, earth and dirt, soil is Amma, the mother earth. Mother D, this land in Louisiana. And it appears that they had metal plates, Amacida, a mass is the metal. But you can see Amma, is earthenware, sandy land. Amma is the earth, to lie on the ground. Until you're a maxi, then you're in the ground. And when Amma, it's an earthquake. And Ani, or Ni, is the water. And you see in this word, this Oni on the end, that's the word for the mother creator. Is to make water, is Kaya Oni. And the thing that makes the waves is the Zozo. And you see here, the husband or the father is Addy or Yik Addy for the husband. And the wife and the mother is the Oni or the Yikoni. The Yoni, the same thing on the other side of the world, is the womb or the vagina. And that's why you'll see the words having to do with creation have the Oni in them. And they saw the sun as feminine. This is also where your word Cain comes from, to leave. Cain's punishment was he had to leave. And so, that God said you must leave. Or, the word is God. And so the Cain means to leave. So my grandmother come from this tribe, and to her life was all about fishing. Her father was Chief Honky Tonk. So what this has to do with this Sphinx here is all about fishing. It has to do with this catalpa. This is where your word caterpillar come from. And it's actually a catawba. So we got this tree next door here. It looks like this. It's a catawba tree. Most of the time they look like this. A catawba tree is easy to spot because it's going to have half of it's always dead. And it's because of these catawba worms. They come out this moth here and it lays eggs on your tree. Also called the catawba sphinx. You never know they're there. They blend right in. But this old catawba sphinx moth, he comes and lays these little bitty eggs on the leaves. And then these eggs hatch, and they start eating. And these are just tiny. This is about a millimeter maybe. And they keep on eating these leaves, and that's why the trees always look dead. Until they grow about 3 inches. They're big, fat. Until they look about like this. And when they're good and fattened up, they start walking down the tree. And so you never know they're there until they start coming down the tree. And it's an army of them. It's a big trail of them walking down the tree. And they go into the ground to make a cocoon or a pupa. They never really make a cocoon. They just go straight to the pupa stage. They're delicious. The fish love them. They taste like raw oysters. And so you just go out there just before the full moon, the first full moon of June, and you'll catch them walking down the tree. You just go out there with a big gallon-sized Ziploc bag, and you pick them up off the tree, and you bag them up and freeze them. And when you thaw them out, they'll come back to life. And they make the best catfish bait. So that's where they're getting this wet down. And it's the Kadaba. The Lord is the one I always say is Kyrios. And so it doesn't say, and the Lord went down. It says, and went down the Lord, if anything. But in Catawba, and went down. You never see them going up, they only come down. And this, the Rios, this is the Lord of cool rivers, Rios, the cool rivers. And so Ku is one of the 5 gods of the Japanese philosophy. The god Eye is, we might describe it as alchemy. That's the word they give war all through the Bible, alchemy. But it's Ku is the god, the Lord of the void. And in Hawaiian, it's pretty much the same thing. He's the god of war, politics, farming, and fishing. These are things you use to fill voids. Hey, we ain't got nothing else going on. It's time for war. Hey, we waiting for the crops to grow. Let's go fishing. But Ku is known as the snatcher of land. And that would be the Egyptian god Akhenet of inundation. That's the season of floods, when the waters come and take over the land. And when I say God, I mean the actual meaning of the word. God was the word. Not the fake meanings they give us, but the actual meaning. And Akhet covered the Egyptian flood cycle. So when it says Enkataba Ku Rios, it means the river went down, is all that means, the rivers. And you see it on the other side over here too, except now it means the city. And so it went down the rivers, and then this mark has you read this word backwards. So it's 9, N-I. The little wave tells you to read the last letter again, N-E. The 9 die of the day, and then you move the E on the other side now. So it's D-E-Y, the day, and then E-N, the day in. And went down the river, the inundation cycle of the river, of 9, of die, of the, through the day in. And then 10, this is your word 10, like T-E-N. I was talking about that last movie. It's the mark to divide cycles. So it doesn't actually mean the number between 9 and 11. It means the mark to divide cycles. And if you're counting in 60s, 60 is the mark that divides the cycle. If you're counting in 12s, 12 is your 10. You count to 12, then you go back to 1 again. It's the mark to divide. So it means 10, but not necessarily our number 10. The pollen. Pollen is what anthers, A-N-T-H-R, what anthers put out. What on, purge on. And so it's talking about, it says the river went down. The day to identify. That's where you get your word identify, to look at. I-D-E-I-N, the I-D-N. And then the pollen. The pollen, what on, purge on. To purge on. The pollen come out. And oh no. And this is why you never ever eat a catawba worm, because if you ever do, you'll be addicted. Because they are delicious. They taste like raw oysters. If you're interested, I'll show you how to fix them when they come in June. And so, and come down in Catawba, inundation of the river, the 9 of the day in 10 to mark of the cycle. Pollen, what on purge on? The pollen was falling out the trees. And oh no, it's a little mark above the O here. You see it's opposite of this. And so it means you read it O-N-O instead of N-O-N. This mark will change this word from non to oh no. And then here it tells you to read it backwards. And so it's oh no, that the sweet nose motto, M-O-D-O, the motto. The motto, and then the co-ca-do mason. The Kokado Mason. And Kokado means the Imperial Light Way. And they're easy to spot, because they wear this old purple uniform when they're doing their jujitsu. And so their motto, is they knew, the deep meaning is the ultraviolet rays are invisible and dangerous. They knew that the ultraviolet rays are dangerous, And so you wear a purple, up around the ultraviolet spectrum. And what it does is it reflects the purple light. And purple is the best color to protect from ultraviolet rays. And masan is an old English word meaning to eat or to feed. And so nos, motto, kokado, misan. And this actually means to come back and read this O again. Masano. Sano is one of the kokado misan. And so he knows the code of the purple eater. And this isn't talking about a builder, this is talking about a worm that knows that it's born white in the month of June. The sun's coming out, it's hot, and he slowly turns into purple in order to protect himself from the ultraviolet rays. And then this OI, if it's just a OI, it's how, and if it's a OII, it's who. It's to see make is how is done, and to see make the work is who's doing the work. And so it's who vio, V-I-O, means to go. And then this mark here is telling you to read it backwards, J-O-Y, up to this line, up to the hyphen. The nose, the motto, the kokado mesano, who goes, joy. And then it says to read the T over, it's T-O-T-N. But this mark says read this backwards. And so it's the double N. And the double N is an M. So it's not tootin', but it's to time, T-M, to mark of the cycle. T, mark, N, cycle. And so it's not reading 10, but it's time. To the time of a port, O-P-O-R-T, a port, a time port is just a short period of time that you're going to be able to catch these worms coming down this tree. To the portin, H-N, the port, P-O-R-T-H-N, the portin anther. An anther is the male part of a flower. The anther is the tail that hangs off the Mars symbol. The anther upon, the male, not of men, but a port in anther upon. So this mark the divided cycle, is a time, and it's also read as then, T-H-E-N, then. And so a kataba carrios to come down the inundation cycle of the river. The 90-day in then, pollen what on purgeon, delicious nose, mode of kokado mesano, who go joy to time, a portin on thereupon. So this is kind of long, and I'll read this Hebrew. It reads a little different in another movie.
Don't forget, hooty hoot, hooty hoot. I won't forget.
All right, I'm gonna cut this off here. Good day.